Welcome back to 5forFive. I am Gene Shirakabrad.
And I'm Ryan Smith.
All right, this is our segment where we take 5 minutes to give you 5 days worth of things to think about. We covered a lot of stuff.
It's our 5th episode.
This is episode 5. We are actually back on track of knowing which episode it is.
5forFive.
5forFive, episode 5. This is all the 5s on this episode. I think it's my turn to kick it off.
That's right.
If I remember correctly. All right, let me get the timer going. 5 minutes and let's go. All right, I want to talk about data today. Kind of important for us. At this point, it should be important for everyone because we're surrounded by data everywhere, from your phones to watches to TVs. Everything is smart nowadays. So we're surrounded by data. The problem is how do we make it relevant for life? How do we make it something that's just not a passive thing that is just around us? How do we integrate it? How do we make it useful for our lives? And that's something that we asked when we started Recharge. Is we know that data is important from our end as clinicians. We looked at healthcare data, we looked at research and evidence and utilizing data and science and math in a way that can make health better, or at least more accurate. So for us, it's about collection of data, about analysis of data, and then it's about making it relevant. And I feel like that gets lost so much, is that we've got to the point of now that it's so easy to collect and amass so much data, healthcare data, heart rates, blood pressures. It's pretty easy to collect it now. All you have to do is put a watch on, an Apple Watch or Fitbit or something like that. People tell us, yeah, I had my 10,000 steps. Great, but what does that actually mean? What is the context behind it? How does that make you healthier? Do you understand why you're doing it? Because most people just are aiming for a number, and they think that if that number is hit, you hit a check mark off and you're like, okay, good, I can put that away. So it's having a deeper understanding behind the data and how is it relevant to you. That's really important. So for us, it's collecting it, it's tracking it for our members every 3 months, creating a report and creating a baseline, because data without a trajectory, data without trends, it's not that useful. In some instances, it's a hindrance because it confuses you even more. You need a clear starting point and then tracking it over time. You need to have that time frame and timeline so you can make accurate assessments, because a snapshot, just one piece of data, doesn't do you any good. And then again, that can be even detrimental, just like getting one MRI or getting one X-ray or getting one of something without context doesn't paint an accurate picture. So data over time is really, really important, and having a good understanding of it.
I think you overshot your time.
Did not. Damn.
All right, so if that's data or data, right? Think if everything is smart around us, does that mean we're getting less smart? Anyways, what I'm going to talk about today is language, right? So we have an educational piece every week for our members, and for this cycle, we're going to really hone in and focus on language and the words we use about ourselves and our inner narrative. During that, what kind of came up in an almost sarcastic way was how optimistic we need to be, right? Because a lot of the stuff about language is not putting yourself down, is not thinking negatively. And so the opposite end of that is being optimistic all the time, always saying things with positivity. And like any good spectrum, swinging far to one end or the other is problematic. In the case of positivity and optimism, if the language doesn't follow up with the appropriate behaviors, there's a mismatch between who you're saying you're going to be and who you actually are. And that chasm, there we are. That chasm between those two is going to really mess with your identity and who you end up becoming in the long term. Right? In addition, if you always say these positive, optimistic things, or you always say these negative things, I think in the positive, optimistic direction, it's more so almost faking ourselves sometimes, or faking ourselves out, versus the negative. We think we underestimate what that actually has on our psyche. So I think in the negative section of that, where that pendulum swings, we underestimate what that actually does to us in the long term, and we overestimate what the positive statements has. So there's somewhere in the middle of finding what your reality is, being able to reflect on that, and understanding how your language has both impacted you in the past, in the present, and will in the future. Knowing that narrative, knowing the story of your life, will help you use the appropriate language to get where you want to go. So don't swing too far one way or the other. Don't underestimate the negative influence of language on you, and don't overestimate the positive influence of language on you. Find some in between, and I think you'll find you'll be able to create your own story that you want to very, very well.
That's good. Well, that matches up really well. What I talked about last week was we go too far into positivity and not recognize that feeling negative or feeling down in comparison to something that justifies that is normal. And I feel like if you speak positive but feel negative, you create that chasm that you talked about, that disconnect grows. Chasm. It grows wider. But yeah, that's an important thing. I would love to hear what you guys think is, sometimes do you feel like you need to be positive based on expectations, but inside you feel the opposite, or vice versa, is you say things negative to the situation, but you feel kind of positive. Does that happen to you? How do you deal with that? Would love to hear that.
5 for
5. Thanks for tuning in to episode 5 on 5 for 5. All the fives. Hopefully you don't have any chisms or chasms or chasms, any of that. Tune in next week. Leave a comment and check us out on Facebook at Recharge XFit. And if you have any questions, if you want to check out what Recharge is, we talk about our system, our model, the cycles. If you want to learn how we integrate all this together, visit rechargexfit.com. Catch you again next week.